Hello and welcome to another episode of Attempted Living. Here at Attempted Living, we hate when suicide happens. And one of the purposes of this channel and website and whole company and brand is to prevent suicide. And so one of the ways that I like to prevent suicide is to understand suicide, to understand how does it happen, why does it happen. Therefore, you can see the signals and signs that someone is on the way to suicide so that you can then recognize them in other people and help them when you see those signals and prevent suicide. So today we're going to talk about, we're going to look into someone who recently committed suicide. He's a celebrity, so I hope that he and his family, first I send my condolences. I'm sorry that this happened. However, I hope that we can use this as a learning experience to prevent future suicides. So I'm going to use Brody Stevens. Here we're going to see Brody Stevens, star of The Hangover, who dies at age 48 of apparent suicide. And I'm going to dive into as much as I can about him when he was alive recently to try to guess as to what caused him to commit suicide. And so that's part one. And in part two, we'll talk about, so once we have that list, then you can then know to look out for those signals to prevent suicide in your friends and family, in strangers, and in yourself. When you see these signals, be concerned, ask for help, know that these are warning signs that will lead potentially to suicide. Okay. Now, I'm going to go through, so I already spent a couple minutes before this video to kind of get a sense of why he committed suicide. And I got enough content, so that's why I'm making this video. However, as I'm going to make this video, I'm going to retrace the steps that I originally used to kind of get a sense of why he committed suicide, so that you can also understand and see the process that I use to figure out what drives someone to suicide, so that again you may have the tools to do so for your friends and family, to prevent your friends and family from committing suicide, and so that you can be introspective and prevent yourself from committing suicide as well. Okay, so one of the things on Reddit that I always do is I will sort by top. So that's the first thing I did, and then I see, okay, the first comment, oh sorry, my alarm, he was great at stand-up, but I had no idea he was in The Hangover. Who was he? Okay, so this tells me that he's not famous. Because if he was famous, this who was he question would definitely not be the highest rated comment on this platform. And we see that the highest rated, second highest, is again like a comment that doesn't explain who he is, and you have to dig deep to figure out who he is. So this again, this shows that he's not very famous, he's not very well known, because if he was, then the top voted comment would definitely explain precisely who that person is. Then finally, I fully acknowledge that I sound like a complete dick here. However, Hangover star, the guy was in one scene for like 15 seconds. So, and this is rated even more highly than the comment that asks who he was. So everybody agrees, at least on this website, that he's not that famous. So what does this tell me? So as someone who's trying to detect suicide, one of the major reasons for suicide is that your life isn't going that well. You don't have things that are going well in your life. Things are going badly. You're not doing well in your job and your career. And if your job and career is to be a comedian, to be an entertainer, then a lack of fame, a lack of recognized success is a sign that you're not doing so well in your career. So we get our first signal as to why he might have committed suicide is that he's 48 years old and he's not doing well in his career. Okay, so what else can I learn from this? Okay, so let's skip to see what the second most popular comment is. And they say, shitty way they tie his career to his bit in The Hangover. He was an accomplished and great stand-up and insanely respected, judging by this outpour after his death. R.I.P. Okay, so he does have a strong following. It may not be a huge following, but there is a strong following that respects him for his stand-up, which is why he has a career in stand-up, presumably. However, again, you see that the first comment is shitty way that they tie his career to his bit role in Hangover. So what does that statement tell us? So he has a stand-up career, which is good and is the strong part of his career. However, the news article doesn't even reference the strong part of his career and instead references the small part of his career. So it's kind of like you lived your whole life doing something that you loved and worked for, and then when people talk about you, they don't talk about your life's work. Instead, you're most known for that one small thing that you did for like 15 seconds. And that's really depressing to think that your life's value, your entire life's value is worth less. It's not worth mentioning. Rather, the 15 seconds of your life is more worth mentioning than the 48 years of your life. So this is a signal to me that, again, he must not be doing that well if the news article would rather reference his 15 seconds of fame than his entire life's work. The parallel would be like when enormous stars die. Like, let's say Michael Jackson is a huge star. When Michael Jackson dies, the headline would not be, oh yeah, remember that one time that Michael Jackson walked into a McDonald's and bought a burger. Like, there's no way that 15 seconds of Michael Jackson buying a burger would be the highlight of his life, right? The highlight of his life would be the music he produced, the entertainment he provided, like all the like charity, like, and then the scandals. Like, there's a lot more to him than just like one walk to a McDonald's. Yet for Brody, the article has summed up his life in a title that references just 15 seconds of his life. So that shows the level to which his career has not been recognized. And so it's kind of like, which to me would be a sign of depression, would be if I worked hard at my life on life's work and I was not recognized at all for my life's work, I would be depressed. And so lack of recognition for his career achievements and accomplishments could potentially be a reason he committed suicide. So again, lots of career-based theories going on here as to why he committed suicide. Okay, so we look at other comments. Oh, he saw him a lot at the Comedy Store. The Comedy Store is a very prestigious stand-up location, so he must have been doing well to be invited back consistently. So he must have done good work. He was super fun to watch, and he'd occasionally drop the mic and shout explanations of jokes to specific people in the audience. Hysterical and already missed. Okay, so what do we learn from this comment? Well, we learned that one, he's getting invited back consistently to a prestigious stand-up venue. So that means he has a strong enough career to be recognized by a strong stand-up entity. And that both this second comment and this third comment are people who enjoyed watching him. He was super fun to watch. So he does have fans. He does have support. So thus he has a career as a stand-up comedian. However, this is kind of telling. he'd occasionally drop the mic and shout explanations of jokes to specific people in the audience. What this says to me is that he's targeting people who don't laugh at his jokes, which I'll start by saying all comedy comes from the mind of the person who's making the joke, and so that means it's a reflection of what's going on in that person's mind. And so why would you you see shouting explanations of jokes, so that's kind of angry, right? If you want to explain something in a kind, gentle manner, you would explain it. But if you're shouting it, that's kind of like angry. You're like, hey, why aren't you laughing? Let me yell the explanation to you. And that kind of has, so that sends signals of anger, and also the fact that you're going to explain something to someone else, that's a sign of like, you think you're better than the other person, you think the other person's dumber than you think the other person can't figure it out on their own, you think they need help, so you help them. And this is critical again, because in the same way that jokes reveal the person, how you treat other people reveal the person too. How you treat others is commonly a reflection of how you treat yourself. So if he disrespects strangers in the audience and thinks that they need help, and then helps them not in a kind way but in an angry, yelling way, then you can get a sense of that's how he's treating himself when he's alone, on his own. He's yelling at himself, thinking that he needs help, and demanding that he reach the expectation, which in this case is to laugh, by yelling the explanation like, this is why that's funny, so laugh. It's funny for people watching because it's sad, right? It's like this person who's an audience member watching the comedian yell explanations of jokes to audience members who don't laugh. When you laugh at that, what exactly is the joke? Right? What makes that funny? Well, in my view, what makes that situation funny is not only is when a comedian has to explain a joke, that means that the joke is bad. Anytime you have to explain a joke, the joke is bad. So you're laughing at the comedian for explaining the joke because that means the comedian told a bad joke. So you're laughing at the comedian. Second of all, when you're laughing at the comedian explaining the joke, you're laughing at the desperation of the comedian to save the joke, because the comedian has now recognized that the joke is not funny to some people, and so they're desperately trying to cling on to their ability to make people laugh by trying to justify their joke. And so you laugh at the desperation, right? So first you laugh at the failure, then you laugh at the desperation. So you're laughing at the comedian for being so terrible at his job. And so why would you make a joke like that as Brody? Why would Brody, the comedian, make a joke about him being so bad at telling jokes that he has to go yell his explanations at people? It must be because that's how he feels about his career. He must feel angry that he is not recognized by enough people. He wants to be more famous. He wants to be more successful in his career. And as a comedian, success means more people find you funny. And he's yelling because he's angry and he's frustrated that he hasn't been able to reach as much audiences as he can. So again, very career-centric reasons for depression and suicide. So, incredibly enthusiastic and so on. Okay, so then I randomly searched for Brody Stevens on YouTube, and I came upon this unlicensed therapy 2 months ago. Okay, so this is an hour and a half, an hour 38 minutes. And this was published just December of last year. Okay, so we're talking, today is February 23rd. So this is 2 months ago. So this is a good way to get a sense of what's going through Brody Steven's mind roughly 2 hours before, 2 months before he commits suicide. I decided to place the Ari Manis unlicensed therapy analysis of Brody Stevens in part 2 of this video because I want this part 1 to stay available online even if Ari Manis decides to reach out and pull down part 2 with my analysis of his video for reasons of copyright or whatever. So that's why that analysis will be in part 2. The link is below. Please leave your comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more.